Hi there, and welcome to the Pod, the Northwest's newest all-purpose recording studio for content creators. If you've got something to say and need a place to say it, search for podpod.uk. In all the usual social channels, give us a like and a follow, and get in touch to reserve your time to create. So welcome to our next podcast, and to kind of link in with a couple of weeks ago when it was Mental Health Awareness Week. Today we've got Kieran Jones from the NHS Living Well team, is that right?
Living Well NHS, yeah.
That's right.
GMMH.
Yeah. So wanted to get Kieran to talk today about everything that you do, the plans that Living Well have across the Wigan Borough. Links to some of the stuff you're working on, like the listening lounges, and just generally kind of linking in the work that you guys do that maybe people don't realise that the work that NHS are doing currently across the Wigan Borough and your plans. So just a bit of an introduction about yourself, the background, and how you came to the role that you do now.
Obviously, I'm Kieran Jones, peer mentor coordinator for Living Well. I was an inpatient at Atherley Hospital about 3-4 years ago. I've got complex PTSD. I was in a really bad place at this point. When I was trying to learn how to manage my mental health, I set a charity up and went into called Bridging Gap. Obviously, Dave was a big part of that. We met about 3-4 years ago, didn't we, Dave?
Yeah, 2021.
Yeah. And at that time, I remember our first meeting clear as day. It was all about bringing services and voluntary sector together, listening lounges, and having them wellbeing hubs. And we've managed stay working together for quite a while. We've got clinical space. Well, I call it clinical space in Tudor House, which is one of Dave's wellbeing. It's trauma informed, so a big part of Living Well. It's been co-produced by Lived Experience, so I got asked for co-design it from Expert Lived Experience, which we've changed Experts by Experience. So my part in that, I didn't feel like it was right that it be all my ideas and all about what I think. So we set Expert by Experience forums up. Living Well were 2 words when I got involved. So all the branding, the logos, the colours. We've even worked on language change. So a referral's a friendly introduction. A service user is known as a person. A risk assessment's a safety plan. A discharge is a friendly farewell. And all these things come from people who engage with services, and it's empowering them for give them that voice. Obviously, Living Well, we are doing things a lot different. We're very focused on working with voluntary sector a lot more. There's a big transformation going on in voluntary sector. Obviously, you've got Groundwork and all these. There's some amazing organisations, and the feedback I'm getting at GM level, Wigan are really leading the way and really interacting. And I couldn't have done half at work I do without the people who's using services in yourself.
So as part of this Living Well model, you obviously got this plan to have this like hub and spokes model. You've obviously mentioned that obviously with Tudor House at Hindley to have that. So are you looking now at other opportunities now? So if there are people obviously listening to the podcast and they're in a particular neighbourhood across Wigan and they're thinking, I'd like to get involved in this, are you looking at identifying buildings? Have you got other buildings or neighbourhoods identified where there might be gaps where you could link into your service? Or
yeah, we're having Hindley at minute. Obviously, we're waiting for Tudor House. We're already live in Wigan Central, Wigan North. I'm just going looking for estates in them areas, but then we've not got a confirmed date, so I won't like to say it. But we are looking at rolling out in all other 4 PCNs. So you've got obviously Lee.
That's a primary care network.
Yeah. So Wigan's cut up into 7. And we're looking at rolling out in rest at Borough in the next couple of months.
Okay.
It will be done slowly, but we'll be looking. We don't want, I call it clinical space, and it's not something I'd live by, but we won't work with voluntary sector. So if we can find premises where we can go and hold appointments in a voluntary sector, one, it generates some movement for voluntary sector and funding, because I know funding's hard to get. I know I never got funding when I was under the bridge, in it. Partly my own fault, because I didn't want it. I wanted to prove I was here for cause. But we won't be working with the groups, because we've got mental health link workers, so they're there for signpost and tap into what that person needs is. It's a lot more person centred. And then we've got peers who, like, when I went to groups, there were times I went to groups, got outside and turned round and went home. Or it might be an appointment and it might get put down as a DNA, but what they don't see is it wasn't me who didn't want to go, it was mental health who wouldn't let me. So when I started co-designing and getting into peer support, a lot of things I designed, like the 12-week programme, it got done as an 8-week fitness programme, and it was all gym related, brilliant results, but there's a lot more than gym with Be Well. You've got yoga, you've got climbing walls and stuff like that, so it's about giving them the knowledge and an insight to what's actually available. And obviously you've got like Steve Wild, who's in voluntary sector. That's something what I think is a really good asset, and I think it needs channeling into. I'm definitely looking at ways I could tap into it. Nothing's quick and fast in our world, but it's all about having that lived experience and seeing it from the people's eyes, not like how clinical it was. So we try to step away from the clinical model.
So, and you mentioned obviously these are going to be rolled out not just in Wigan but across the whole of GM, or
they're up and down country.
Up and down the country. Okay, so this is
it's a national thing. Obviously we're rolling out across GM. So Salford, Manchester, I think they're using our prototype as but we've got Bolton living well. Bolton's brilliant. They're all really, they're doing.
And it's good as well, because I know what I've liked about it as well is that they are rooted in neighbourhoods, in communities, and not necessarily always town centre focused. They are literally in neighbourhoods where people have an access to get that service, and you know, whether it's the support, I know the conversation we're having in a minute, obviously with Tudor House, around the support that you guys bring in, but how it helps some of the other, you know, VCFSE groups in the organisation that provide stuff around food support, training, you know, craft support, you name it. So I think for us, there's a feeling that this could, you know, alter some of the way that the buildings we have in our neighbourhoods are shaped, and like you say, you know, develop services that are less
it's like
crisis-led image-wise, which I know is always the challenges that has happened with some of these.
It's like one thing, it's like people with social anxiety, just get them out the house is a challenge. I've supported people over like a 6-month period, and for the first couple of weeks I've just had a brew with them at the front door. A couple of weeks after, I've had a brew with them at the gate. A couple of weeks after, we've gone in the street, and it's took me like 6 months, but then you work it up small steps, big goals, I believe in. And it's about not making them travel. So if we can live in well where the people want their appointment, that's where they're getting it. So if they don't want it in the race and they want it away and they ask us sort a GP practice, then we would step into a GP practice. But if they want it in their house or on a walk, that's what we'll do. We had one example where been in social anxiety for over isolating for over 12 months. One of our peers realised they really liked dogs but didn't have a dog, so our peer brought a dog in work, took it to an appointment. Next thing, they're out walking dog, going shop, and it was just something like that what's priceless. And because we're a peer-led organisation, but the balance between professionals, like 12 months ago I'd have been like, oh, peers are going to change the world, but that balance between professionals and peers, I've seen a massive impact on what it can do, because you like reinforce what they're saying, and especially if you can tap in. And in a lot of other areas I've searched peer support, and it's either trust at providing the peers or the voluntary sector do, and there's always that us and them in attitude. But in Wigan, I do believe that we're going to check that out, and we're going to have like a bit of a structure where inpatients get discharged, the peers facilitate the handover, and that works down to our peers, and then our peers, I really want our peers tapping into voluntary sector peers, so we take that revolving door effect out and it's more streamlined. But with all good work what's been done, like by yourself, Nicola, groundwork, all them, Liz, there's too many to name without upsetting people for missing them out. We're in a really strong position for lead by example, and we are being noticed at GM level.
Because I think it's great for people to realise, and we'll come on to it now, about your story, because obviously I know what you mentioned before when we first met about 2021. Obviously, you came on our radar through the local councillor in Abram, Martin Smethurst. But I know your journey in that first 12 months roughly, right, during the COVID period. So, because obviously you mentioned about your role as a peer, so if you're right to mention a bit about your story as to why you ended up deciding to set up Bridging the Gap, but then how that worked then enabled you to then be picked up, let's call it, by the NHS and do the role you're doing now, because it's a strong story you have.
Yeah, so obviously I've got complex PTSD. I was suicidal. I was addicted to cocaine. It's hard for explain a dark place, but like when we switch on for support for understand a dark place, you've got to have been in that dark place. And there was a lot. I was seen as paranoid because of the cause, which I can't really mention due to, but I failed. And when I set Bridging up was after I'd been on a section, I'd set a fundraiser up, had Chubby Brown on, and it was like, what, rather than criticise what I didn't get and live in that self-pity, I started designing stuff of what I needed at that time, what I wasn't getting. But one thing what was beneficial, especially with Health Watch as well, they give me that voice and let me use my voice. So when I was telling them stuff I'd seen and what needed changing, they actually listened, which empowered me. So I set the lived experience forums up at time, now they're EBE forums, but that's really tapping into what people's experience, good or bad, and then we can bring it into service. So when I got into it, it was in lockdown. Obviously, we was in lockdown. So luckily, I know it sounds daft, but I found TikTok. So a lot of our work was done on social media, but there was always a risk to social media, because if someone reaches out to you and says, prime example, a lad come into our live, presented, said he'd cut himself. I said, send us a picture so I could assess how bad it was. I think he had 12 minutes to get paramedics down to him, otherwise he'd have bled out. But all I had was a username, and the username doesn't mean that's their name, and it wasn't at time. So I had my volunteers who was moderators, so I could leave. I jumped on, I know how to search the internet, and he was in Bristol, but I managed to get paramedics out to him in 9 minutes.
Wow.
But when you ring emergency service here, you'll get Greater Manchester, but then they have to revert all that information over, and but I literally grew Bridging through social media and doing support, and people tend to open up a lot more. Some of the best support I found was online. you've got Samaritans. You never speak to the same person, but they always sign it off Joe. So it's like you're speaking to the same person, and you do have to repeat your story a lot, which was frustrating for me at that time. So one thing we are trying to do for change things is stop people repeating the story.
And it's interesting, like I say, because that whole kind of bottom-up led approach from, you know, how you end up with your role as NHS, because I remember, you know, you were obviously, I think, was it in 2022 when I know the local community nominated you and then you won the
Community Hero
was it the Community Hero Award, and I think that
was the deal. I think
that was the deal from the Wigan Council, and I remember when you won that award, and I think that just proved that the impact you was having, that so many people in the local community nominated you for that award, because you were doing all this obviously voluntary, you were doing it all because you had the passion to do it, and you were that community hero obviously there, and you still are. And I think the key thing is being that, you know, that role that you did, and you know, I remember you saying it, obviously, you know, it obviously helped you have the vision set up, bridging the gap, and it's just nice to know that, like I said, that lived experience opportunity gave you this chance with living well. And then it's really nice to kind of see how that has no change, but you were now obviously able to make this massive impact across and I know recently you was on for Mental Health Awareness Week. You've been doing stuff on
It's been a
television,
I'll be honest.
Highlighted on all kinds of media.
I got the award off Wigan Council. I can't think, it was the deal at time, Tracy and stuff. I remember Tracy, set a bank account up, because they wanted me to get the funding, but I was more about being here for a cause and showing people that there is that out there. And I did have a vision. The intention was there to do that, but obviously things progressed, and I got to a point where I'd made an impact in VCSE, but VCFSE, but I knew I had to go inside for make real impact and change, and I got that award. And then I always said I wouldn't work for Trust, and even though I've come in Trust, the support I'm getting off Trust is unbelievable, because my way isn't the normal way in Trust, because I'm not that clinical textbook trained I'm not a yes man, so I will bring the bad stuff to the table, but the brilliant, the way Trust are on board to change is get me bought in. They're doing it, and it is. And then obviously first year I got nominated for Inspirational Story at Year at UK Mental Health Awards down London, and I go and wear a tux and stuff, which is totally out my comfort zone, but it was like mind blowing. And when I went down there, my son had seen me in dark places for years, so when I went, my son was my +1, because I wanted him to see this side to it. And then obviously we've just had Mental Health Awareness Week. I've done some work with NHS England, I've done a lot with our comms, but again, being a peer, it's about leading by example. So it's easy for me to sit on a video going, yeah, let's move. Just Dance has become a bit of a joke. But I thought long and hard, what can I do for practice what I preach? And how can I use this for create a movement within a movement? Because to me, Mental Health Awareness is weak because it gets that spotlight, but it should be done every day a week. So I come up with an idea. I thought it was a genius idea at first. My body's not telling me the same, and it was to do the 3 peaks, so Snowdon, Scafell, Ben Nevis, within either 3 days or 24 hours. And I thought 3 peaks, 3 piers, let's blow the pier all up, because obviously it's new to services and it's being used in different ways up and down the country. Plus it promotes movement. So I didn't think I'd get any interest. I thought I was going to be a soul walker on this one. And then some at peers said, I'll do it. So we've gone down the 3 peaks, 3 piers. We've decided to do it over 12 months. So we're not doing the challenge over 12 months, but we're going to train for 12 months so we can enjoy it. So over the next 12 months, we're going to be getting sponsors where we'll put the branding on our kit. We'll have GoPros, so we'll be recording all conversations. We're going to be doing some fundraising, which obviously for sponsors. But I'm going on a bit of a competition where everybody will guess how many miles we'll cover in our training. Obviously, you're going to have a different guess now because it's 12 months. But the closest will pick the charity who the money goes to. Yeah. And we're going to be doing Snowdon separate, Scarfell separate, Ben Nevis separate. We're going to be doing Yorkshire 3 Peaks separately and in one hit. We're going to be doing Tough Mudder, and this is going to be all part of the training programme. And it's just for get that awareness and practice what we preach. Yeah. If people want to come on Summit Walks with us over the next 12 months on ARCs, whether it be one at voluntary sector or some people who's struggling and just want to come on an ARC with us, all for it.
Yeah, we'll make sure we get the link to the funder on the podcast. We'll make sure we put that on. Because you mentioned obviously there about fitness and that, because I know that was one of your approaches into around the links you've had with the gyms. You've had some big links with. So what was Be Well?
When I was an inpatient, there was a gym on ward, and I went, "Can I use that?" "Oh no, you can't use that. We've nobody's man it." Obviously, this was years ago. They've actually recruited, and the gyms in Adderley now are being used right. They're doing some good stuff, but I designed a 8-week fitness challenge. Be Well did it with me when I was in voluntary sector under Bridging. So they got 12 weeks free membership, and we did classes every week. But this time I've sat down with Paul, Wigan Athletic Community Trust, Jamie Cook and Steve and that, but Jamie's leading on it. So we sat down and thought, right, what can we do, what's different? And when you sign up to Be Well, people think it's just a gym. You've got baths, you've got all different classes. So part of this, week 1 we did a circuit, week 2 we did a circuit, and that was it was all about getting them comfortable in the settings of a gym. But we didn't just tell them go to a class. We put mental health link workers in it, we put peer support workers in it, peer mentors in it. Obviously I want it to be available to staff as well, because staff wellbeing's a big thing. I know Wigan and Bolton's just recruited a staff wellbeing lead. It's very high on the agenda. So we're doing 2 pilots, one for people using services, one for staff wellbeing. So we did 2 circuits for the first couple of weeks for get them settled. Then we did a boxing session, which that was out my comfort zone. It's just, I think I've never thrown a punch in my life, so I wouldn't know that side. But then we've done a spin class. Obviously I've just recruited a peer who's a trained PT. So throughout this programme he's done some one-to-one PT sessions, but incorporated peer support into it, which that's another thing what Steve's trying to tap into, that's what I'm fully behind all that. But last week we went to High Bridge on climbing walls, and normally you see them in kids play areas. I'm telling you, it was fantastic. Yeah, it was hard because obviously someone like myself who's 20 stone for climb up, you're all attached with ropes and stuff. I think this week we've got Crown Green bowling. I think next week we're doing yoga, and every week they get a peer support group where we get like Chris our peer, who's the PT, did one on nutrition. So we're doing like workshops in the peer, so they get, and then on the Saturdays we get it, they all got gym, do their own thing, but you've got your peers and your link workers there where they can just jump on. And we've called it the game changing community program because we've done a well-being walk, and they underestimate how well they're doing. They went and did 6k in like an hour, but when they got back, they were like, I didn't think I could do that. And just having staff who have actually, it was a bit mind blowing for them, because they were like, hang on a minute, you've got staff who's actually doing it with us. But that's something, another example of I living well are doing things a bit different.
And you mentioned before about the work you're doing with groundwork a minute. So a big piece of work, I know it's up and coming, it's been out and announced in the last month or two, is these listening lounges. So I know you're working with Nicholas Swan at groundwork, and obviously your team. So where are these listening lounges up to? What are listening lounges planning to be? And how can people get involved in the sector?
I know if you want to host the listening lounges, you have put an expression of interest out to Nicholas Swan at Groundwork. Nicholas is leading on that with GMMH. When I was in voluntary sector, I got shortlisted tech on the listening lounges at that, but obviously I come down a difference and ended up doing service work. But Nicholas, someone who's really leading on that and working. I know, but I think don't hold me to this. This is Nicholas, and I'm sure you'll hear off Nicola in a couple of weeks. But I think they're looking at an hub and spoke model themselves.
Okay.
So they're looking for venues for hosting. So they'll have one central and then all your spokes. But then they want it hosted by the voluntary sector. So it's not actually done by trust. So I think that's being peer-led. That's as much as I can share, really, because obviously it's Nicola's work, but that will be a good conversation. But it's good to know that, like you say, it is. I know it's something that obviously we've been chatting about, obviously, because you're right, it seems to be something that you're right that fits into that bigger picture, and obviously we'll be aiming to do our next podcast, obviously, with groundwork to obviously kind of find out, obviously, hear more about that. So it's kind of nice to know that the links between you guys at NHS and obviously the work that's going on with groundwork. So yeah, I think it's just really, I think it's been great from Wigan's side of it, that obviously the work that you guys have done over the years, and yourself in particular, and that stuff, and I think it's been evident in these last few weeks, where I know you've had numerous, like I say, radio and television interviews to kind of do. It's interesting to see what we know the change of this will have for the Wigan area. It's nice the way it's going to change our neighbourhoods, the way these buildings will, and the service will obviously impact in terms of, I've always been a big advocate, I've said before, about these like 15-minute neighbourhoods where people can have access to services on their own doorstep. And it's kind of nice to see obviously this kind of develop, and I just think it's really good as well that like yourself and when we have got people in senior roles like yours, it has come from lived experience or the terminology, because I think that's what it is. People who are obviously having that experience, that's the that's where change is made, rather than people who've parachuted into these roles, whatever, from that it is properly like bottom up approach led with. Yeah, well, obviously I was a granite fitter 6-7 years ago, ended up having seizures through my mental health, went on sick, come out to me, I don't like calling it recovery, because I learned how to manage my mental health. I'll always have it. I had a relapse not long since, and I've actually leaned on the gym program myself as a participant, so I can there's two, because we're doing a staff wellbeing, I went into it as a participant, even though I was overseeing it. One of other peers, Megs, obviously she'd been on leave with the mental health. I supported her coming back, and we put her on gym program so we can document the well-being side and the impact it can have. But from being a granite fitter with no understanding of mental health or no qualifications, I think I had my basics, GCSEs, and I went into building trade because I always got told I was dyslexic and I'd never achieve anything. So that's why I ended up in building trade. Obviously, I ended up an inpatient struggling, and I've ended up as a manager within a service and working on different things at GM level, not just in Wigan. But that just shows the progression from voluntary sector, like the work how long have you been in? 20 years?
25 years.
25 years, and look how far that voluntary sector, but you've got just loads of good work. You can't actually pinpoint one organisation or one person. You've got the deal, which is
the council.
You've got Wigan Council. You've got obviously there's different sections of Wigan Council like Be Well, but then you've got all your VCS FEs who are doing groups like Craft Ave and stuff like that. Obviously you've got groundwork, and there's loads of there's too many for name, and it's like Wigan Community Trust. Everyone thinks it's funded by Wigan Athletic. It's not. They don't get no funding support from them. They have to go and get their own funding and the work they do. But what I've seen over the last 3 years is everything's now started coming together, and we are creating a network. And like I say, I think we're leading by example.
It is, and it's always been great. Like you say, that collaborative approach, bringing in the anchors like the council, the NHS. Obviously the sector itself, which is great, it's coming together, and the fact that it's rooted in neighbourhoods, and it's really rooted, and the fact that there is obviously change already being made. Obviously it's nice that we can start to showcase that impact already, and clearly I think it is going to be something that I mean, we shouldn't be in this position unfortunately, but it's nice that change is obviously being made, and that Wigan Great Manchester leading the way. So no, that's really great. I appreciate that, Kieran. It's great to hear from you, and it's been a journey that we followed for a good 2 years, and it's nice to see you. So what we'll do is we'll put some information on the bulletin of how obviously people can contact yourself and your team. So thanks so much. Cheers, Kieran.
Hopefully there'll be plenty more for come.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Thanks a lot. Thanks,
Dave.